Greetings. My name is David Gieslin, and I'm the president of CEASD, as well as the superintendent of the Indiana School for the Deaf. I'm here today to share an update on all that has taken place at CEASD in recent months. For whom are these efforts for, you may ask? For deaf children and the goal of seeing deaf children everywhere thrive. That is the very mission behind CEASD. We are here for you. The vision of CEASD from its inception has been to see deaf children thrive. CEASD believes that this is made possible by supporting leaders across the nation by developing best practices and providing resources in order that these children can thrive. CEASD holds an annual conference, usually in April and occasionally through May, but typically in April. Our 2021 conference was on docket to be held in Salt Lake City, Utah, and hosted by the Utah School for the Deaf and Blind. The coronavirus, as you know, is currently sweeping the globe. I do want to take a moment to commend our CEASD board for their excellent work. We met this past July and wondered together what the future would hold, if our 2021 conference was even feasible. Following some serious discussion, the board came to a unanimous agreement that the conference will be taking place virtually. At our request, the Utah School for the Deaf and Blind graciously agreed to host in 2022. I do want to thank Utah School for the Deaf and Blind for their flexibility during this time. The next task was to decide how this virtual conference would take place. Clearly, an all-day virtual format is not optimal. As it is, every school administrator has enough on their plate and are stretched thin. Being considerate in the format of this conference is just one way that we are able to take care of one another. We determined that beginning at the month of April, there would be 2 meetings per month available to members. These sessions would be held bi-weekly for 12 consecutive months. Our annual conference does entail a registration fee, and many participants attend through school sponsorship. Clearly, this is the evidence of the school embracing their commitment to ensure that deaf students can thrive. The income for the registration fees comes back to support CEASD and allows us to serve and support you better through our resources. In light of this, the benefit of our conference is twofold: to train up better leaders, and to support the organization that serves you. This has been an exciting and successful enterprise thus far. I am thankful to Jeff Bravin, our president-elect, for all of his efforts, and to our board members for their engagement, support, and brainpower. I'll be sharing with you about our strategic plan. This plan includes 5 elements, the 4th of which I'd like to address first. This item focuses on relationships and making sure, within the scope of an organization, all appropriate opportunities are taken advantage of. One of the potential partnerships identified was the NAD. The NAD shares the same goals, the same vision, and we're in alignment in wanting to see deaf children thrive. Following some analysis and discussion, the decision was made to officially partner with them, meaning that NAD would have a presence at our conference by the way of 2 delegates. In turn, CEASD would send 2 delegates to NAD's conference. NAD's most recent conference that was planned for July in Chicago would have been the first opportunity to enjoy a presence. However, unfortunately, it was canceled. NAD set their top 5 priorities, which inform NAD's goals. This will improve the quality of life in our deaf communities across the nation. We decided to hold a virtual conference and formed a council of representatives. These representatives come from all over and comprised of approximately 100 individuals. The next challenge we faced was logistics. How would the conference take place inclusive of all these representatives? At that point, I have to commend the NAD board for their efforts in what became a highly successful event. They stepped in to provide Zoom training for CEASD as well as training on parliamentary procedure. Furthermore, they worked with us on goal development, which has ultimately prepared us to become more successful. The NAD board has now set their list of top 5 priorities, and I believe that we will be able to support them in their mission going forward. As you may know, CEASD hosts an education and advocacy summit where leaders from across the country gather to discuss education and advocacy. This occurs annually and is typically held during the month of February. Traditionally, we have been able to partner with blind advocacy organizations, an alliance for the Alice Cogswell and Sullivan Act. This act works together ensuring quality education for deaf and blind children under the IDEA law. This collaboration ensures the most equitable laws for all our children. This summit brings together professionals in the field to learn about the changes at the federal level. Likewise, our students attend this summit to learn how the federal and state government operates, including processes and procedures. This is a wonderful learning opportunity for them as well. They are able to see how the General Assembly works, as well as meet legislators from both the Senate and the House of Representatives. During this meeting, the students are able to engage with them about the importance of the Alice and Cogswell and Sullivan Act. This February, instead of canceling the summit, which we believe is a necessary component of ensuring that all children can thrive, we have decided that this event will be virtual and take place from February 22nd to the 26th. The participation will include CEASD, NAD, Laurent Clair Center, as well as Gallaudet University. We are so grateful for the partnerships and collaborations of these organizations, which will ensure a successful event. More information will be forthcoming. Now, for our update on the strategic planning. I will briefly explain each of the 5 goals. The first goal, item A, encompasses school leadership nationally. We established a leadership academy where leaders can gather to engage a comprehensive 1-week course. They will also be assigned a mentor to engage with year-round. This has been very successful in the previous 2 years. Unfortunately, the 3rd cycle has now been interrupted. Coronavirus strikes again. We are currently working out the logistics for next year. This does not mean you have a year off, so to speak. Our children deserve to thrive. Therefore, we press on. We have begun an analysis of school viability. We are evaluating the longevity and health of our schools. Viability is key. We will be working with the administrative teams as well as the leadership group to draft a rubric for use by school administration to assess areas of improvement. This process is ongoing. As part of that, there is a need that arises when a superintendent or executive director position becomes vacant. The state or governing agencies are often not familiar with the needs of deaf students due to its low incidence population. Therefore, we will create guidelines stating the qualifications needed in candidates for these leadership positions within the respective school or program. That project is ongoing. Moving on, our strategic planning item B has to do with accreditation. Amazingly enough, this task is nearing its completion, an impressive feat. These are guidelines and meaningful procedures for how schools can better prepare themselves for the accreditation so that by the time the accreditation committee arrives, they're prepared. That document has been written. Additionally, we have training for the accreditation committees on their roles and responsibilities. CEASD created guidance for how we as an organization are to oversee the committee's visit to the respective schools. One exciting element is the virtual piece. Some other accrediting organizations have been taking part in virtual frontier, and we are happy and ready to join their number. We are so thrilled to be working in this endeavor, which is nothing less than cutting edge. CEASD begins its exciting journey, and do want to acknowledge and thank one school in particular. They were brave enough to volunteer to this new experience. That school is the California School for the Deaf, Riverside. This collaboration will be the first of its kind in our organization and will lay the foundation for the future virtual accreditation visits. We are quite proud of our accreditation committee for their excellent work. The third strategic planning item, C, will focus on raising awareness of CEASD as a whole so that we can bring more recognition to deaf schools and programs across the country, which will in turn increase enrollment. This will take place by defining our vision. That vision is to see deaf children thrive. We will see this come to fruition by providing support and training for leaders, which will bring to improvement to better schools, enabling these children to succeed. In addition, we have developed a new logo and recently updated our website and social media presence following some intensive changes. As we took stock of the world around us today and all that is taking place with the coronavirus, we began to piece together a library of ASL resources regarding the coronavirus, which are posted on our CEASD website. We encourage schools to take advantage of this library as a resource for your students for the benefit of their safety. Furthermore, many schools have asked for our assistance in designing a recovery plan. This plan will outline the necessary steps that bring us from entirely virtual education back to in-person instruction. This will ensure optimal safety for all students. As numerous schools have begun this daunting task, questions continue to arise, especially since many of our schools function differently than mainstream public schools. In order to streamline this process, CEASD has compiled a litany of school reentry plans to be used as a reference for other schools, which can be adjusted to meet their respective needs and then shared again as a kind of collective think tank. Again, this labor is for the purpose of seeing children thrive. I've been quite proud of that work thus far. Brings me to strategic action item D. As new jobs and opportunities to connect arise, we will consider those and how they relate to our mission of seeing all children thrive. We have developed and honed a rubric, and it has been successful thus far. Lastly, E is to be constant in our purpose throughout each of our organization goals. We have identified a need to look at diversity, especially in light of Black Lives Matter, and how that relates to each part of this strategic plan. We recognize there are some gaps, and we will expand those areas. Though the strategic plan has been complete, our work is far from done. There is always more changes to be made in the coming months and years. This planning has come as a result of rigorous work, and we now feel ready to bring it before you. October 2021, our board will reconvene to look at their strategic plan and evaluate what new challenge we are ready to take on or what revisions must be made. That analysis will result in the strategic plan for our coming year, the result of which will be shared with you following the October meeting. We will be welcoming your feedback until our session in April 2022, at which point we will meet for our conference in Salt Lake City, hosted by the Utah School for the Deaf and Blind. At that point, the strategic plan will be finalized and put into effect for the coming year. I want to thank you all for your support in this strategic planning process and your willingness to help CEASD continue to improve, which results in improved schools. Our final update will address the election. The election will serve to appoint our officers, president, president-elect, and the board. At this junction, I will let our election officer, whose role is to oversee the election proceedings, have the floor. Amy Novotny is the director of the Rocky Mountain School for the Deaf, who boasts a gorgeous campus. At this time, I'll turn it over to Amy for further announcements.
I am here to share the recent CEASD survey regarding the election. The survey's purpose was to determine how to address the next election. Should the election be held in person at the 2022 conference or be held virtually this spring? 52% of the responses show that you prefer to vote in person, so we will have our next election at our 2022 conference in Salt Lake City. Thank you for your responses. CEASD's board is committed to the continuation of its work.
Thank you for your attention in watching our update and for your support. Everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, happy holidays, and hashtag CEASD in this together.